Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Solo ReacTalk. This afternoon, I'm going to be continuing my reaction to the playlist The End and the Death of Sanguinius, a playlist compiled by Anthrax Crab 2222. And I'm continuing on now with Echoes of Eternity, Sanguinius speech at the Eternity Gate, voiceover made on the DQVO YouTube channel. If you guys want to check out my previous reaction to the other videos on the playlist, remember that I put the links in the description below. You'll be able to find all those reactions there. And as well as Warhammer 40k content created by YouTube's reaction playlist card on the top here, the card. Let us continue now with the Echoes of Eternity, Sanguinius speech at the Eternity Gate. Voiceover. Let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
Sanguinius's words, carried along the kilometers of elevated wall, brought to distant ears on the clicking, ticking, crackling speakers of servo skulls and Mechanicus drones. Soldiers clustered around their data slates to bear witness to the Primarch's proclamation. The 100,000 defenders of the Delphic battlement, drawn from all across the burning Imperium, listened to the words of the great angel.
Before we start, or continue I should say, I just want to say that, what's the YouTube channel name again? Sorry, just forgot it right now. Yes, DQVO YouTube channel has good taste in music. I like the fact that DQVO is using Scott Buckley's music, because I use it too. It's very good music, especially this, what is it, Beautiful Oblivion, soundtrack. Very, very good. It just brings out those emotions. So I really do like it. Good choice.
All of them could see him, even if they were far from his sight and forced to rely on a hololithic reflection. All of them could hear him, even if his words purred through the crackling mouth of a floating probe. Land had expected a speech dripping with demagogic inspiration. He'd find it tawdry, but knew most of the human defenders, many of whom responded far more positively to the Primarchs than the Mechanicus did, would find great value in such a display. But that was not what he, nor any of them, received.
I mean, when I look at this image, it just gives me, it just makes me think about how would it be in that situation. You're one of those 100,000 men and women who are going to be fighting, defending the palace. And you're just seeing these giant war machines. You're seeing, the turrets facing out towards the enemy in the distance. And you just see server skulls floating around, as Sanguinius speaks through his microphone. He has a microphone, I'm sure. And you're just in that moment. This image, it helps with that type of process of thinking of what if you were there? What if you were experiencing all of this? How would you be at that very moment? Hearing a Primarch, not just Astartes, the angels of death, no, a Primarch. Oh.
I do not want to be here, Sanguinius told them. I do not want this present, and I want the future that follows even less. We stand against our own brothers and sisters with our backs to the Eternity Gate. And this is not a battle we can win. If you have ever wondered how you will die, now you know. If
That hits hard.
you have ever wondered where your body will lie, now you know. You will be killed on the last wall, between hope and horror. Your body will lie here, unburied, staring up at a poisoned sky. Once the sanctum falls, terror falls with it. And I tell you, we cannot hold this wall. You can see it yourselves. They are too many. We are too few. We may last a week if we do the impossible. More likely, we will all be dead in 3 days. Perhaps my words surprise you, or frighten you. But I will not lie. Not to you. Not to you who have come through 200 days of dread only to find yourselves here. I have looked into your faces and seen what this war has cost all of you. I have followed the flow of battles that each of you have survived to stand here on the final battlement. I see everything you have endured. Those stories written in the light of your eyes. Now the War Master offers you the lie of life, promising a mercy his forces are incapable of showing if we abandon the last wall. And it falls to me, here and now, to tell you to stand against him one more time. To give everything you have, even your lives, if it will hold this rampart for another day, another hour, another second. That is what the moment demands of me, is it not? But I beg you to make one last sacrifice. Sanguinius swooped closer to the battlement, casting his sword to the stone. It clattered there in a loose cluster of blood angels.
And this is before the time of commissars. You know, if there were commissars here, it doesn't matter how many times you've been in battle, how tired you are, morally demoralized. Hey, I have a gun at your face. You better start preparing for battle. Doesn't matter how bad you feel or, how wounded you are. We're going to fight until there's nothing left of us. But this is before commissars existed, I think. I'm not sure. If you guys know better than me, please, correct me in the comment section. But I think, what Sanguinius is saying here is right, really. It is important. And he's telling the truth that, death is certain. Within the next 3 to 2 days, death is certain, definitely. And I understand that he's trying to galvanize the soldiers, to fight one last time. But I'm saying you need a commissar here to do these type of things. You need someone to push them forward. And I think this was before the time of the commissars. Yeah, I could be wrong about that. If I am, you can tell me in the comment section.
None of whom made any attempt to pick it up. Land stared at it for a long moment, then watched as the Primarch whirled in the sky to face the wall once more, showing his bare hands to the gathered thousands. No. Sanguinius fairly breathed the word. His wings beat hard, holding him aloft. He stared into the silence that met his disavowal, and he shook his head to punctuate the syllable with adamance. No. I will not ask it of you. You have already given everything. You have done everything asked of you 100 times and more. You have suffered through a war of unimaginable darkness, one that has demanded more from you than any soldier in the history of our species has been forced to give. The fact that you still live, that you still fight, I cannot conceive of the courage and resilience it requires for you to face this dawn and look to the horizon with a rifle in your hands. Land could hear the army soldiers shuffling. He saw them glancing at each other. None of them spoke. All of them held rapt to the Primarch's words. Where Horus has offered only lies, I will offer you truth. Those of you that wish to run, run.
Do it. I dare you. I dare you. I dare you to try and run. I'm shooting you in the back. Okay? No one is leaving. I dare you.
Leave this place. Not in shame at a duty undone. Not in surrender to the traitor's forces, but with honor. Go with my gratitude, for you have already given everything asked of you. What right does anyone have to demand more? From you who have endured harrowing beyond account, horror beyond measure. If you wish to fall back into the Sanctum Imperialis and spend the last hours of life with your children, then do so. Know that you go not only with my blessing, but with my envy. If you wish to leave the wall and take your chances in the wasteland before the battle begins, then, in the Emperor's name, you have earned the right to try. Go swiftly, and carry with you the pride that you have already given a hero's share in a war that none of us wanted, but were forced to fight. And if you wish for the truth, I will give it to you gladly, for you have earned that too. It shames me to admit, but I would abandon this wall if I could. The Primarch in me, the supposed demigod half of my heart, craves life with a ferocity that shames me. If I bowed to that instinct, I would take to the sky and never look back. But I cannot. I am half human, and the human in me demands that I stay. Sanguinius turned, looking over his shoulder at the retreating emissary. Daughter of Torment was a quarter of the way to her lines now. When he looked at the wall once again, all could see the resolve in his eyes. There are legends about me. I hear them whispered among you every day. But I know the moment of my own death. The stories say this gives me courage. That I feel no fear, because I know I cannot yet be slain. Here is the truth of that tale. That prophesied death is coming. Today, tonight, tomorrow. I know not when or how, only that I feel fate's breath on the back of my neck. I do not remain here, out of immortality's courage. I remain here, because if I am to die, I choose this death. I choose to die with my back to the last door. I choose to give my life to buy another hour, or a minute, or even a single second of grace to those who cannot be here fighting with me. I choose to die here because I do not believe I have yet given all I can. Someone must stand and fight. And if I have but one choice left, I will make it now. I will stand. I will fight. I will hold this wall, knowing that the 13th Legion makes for terror with all speed, and if they cannot bring salvation, they will bring retribution. Whether I am alone, or whether 100,000 of you are by my side when the War Master's horde descends upon this wall, they will find me waiting for them with a blade in hand, not because I can win, but because it is right. I do not know what delusion grips those out there, those who were once brothers and sisters, but I know it is right to oppose them. Silence drifted over the Delphic battlement.
I wonder how the Blood Angels feel, as they hear their Primarch say that my death is either coming today, or it's coming this evening, or it's coming tomorrow, but it's coming soon, it's close. I wonder how the Blood Angels feel, hearing their Primarch say these words. Knowing that they will try everything in their power to defend their Primarch, but the Primarch has seen into the future and he knows that his death is certain. Around this time period, he will no longer be with us. Must be gut-wrenching for them. Powerful speech. For those who want to run away, even if you do run away and you go to the wastelands on Terra, I'm afraid there's just no escape for anyone. If Horus Supercal wins, Terra is finished completely. So there's no point in running. Face your death now instead of facing it later. Face it now with those that you've been fighting with for so long. For almost 200 days. Fight with them, die with them, instead of dying in the wastelands. A very slow and agonizing, painful death. Rather die here. Die with people who are by your side. Yeah.
But only for a moment. Sanguinius swept his arm across the wall, taking in the defenders. Thousands of hollow ghosts of his image did the very same thing. I have spoken enough. You need hear no more of my fears and confessions. All that remains is for me to ask. Will you run?
Never!
At first, in the face of the great angel's honesty, there was no answer. Corporal Mashajir of the 91st Hindustani drop troops didn't know what to say. Reason and duty warred within him, in a way known to any soldier facing the grimmest odds. He could live. He could leave and live. His regiment wasn't made for this kind of fighting anyway. They were guerrillas, drop troops, trained for point insertion. He'd been on the ground for this whole damn war. What use was a grav trooper on a rampart? What use was high-atmosphere jump training when all he had now was a las rifle and a bayonet?
That's all you need. That's all you need. A las gun and a bayonet. That's all you need.
But he was making excuses, justifying, and he knew it. Mash had the training and the experience to overcome these doubts, to push them back and summon focus in their stead. Besides, there was nowhere to run.
Exactly. Nowhere.
Not really. Tactically, it made sense to hold here. If he was going to die, best he sell his life where it would matter most. No! He called to the Primarch. And he wasn't the first, but he was one of them. His voice cut out from the silence in the very first wave of denials. He wouldn't leave the wall. He wouldn't run. No. Skitarii didn't celebrate birthdays. Magna Delta 8v8 was no exception to this, though her macrolade, the series of platoons and structured hierarchies that defined not only her military position, but also her entire social existence, had a tradition of honoring the anniversaries of a soldier's first combat. Due to the constant casualties and replenishment in a macrolade deployed to a theater of conflict, it meant his acknowledgements were frequent, minor things. The exact axiom translated poorly from Skit code into any variant of Gothic, but the meaning was more or less, every day is someone's anniversary. The custom usually involved the exchange of gifts, often repeatedly re-gifted within a regiment, since Skitarii were permitted so few possessions of their own. Today was Magna Delta 8v8's combat anniversary. Only hers, out of those that remained, because so few of them were left. It didn't matter that the avatar of the Omnissiah himself was at work in the fortress behind her. It didn't matter that the horde on the horizon outnumbered and outgunned them an incalculable number of times over. These would have been considerations, of course, on any other day, and she would have stood and fought according to the Banaric diktat of duty. Today, though, these concerns were irrelevant. There was no chance she would run on her battle anniversary. Temptation had teased even her strip-mined brain, of course. She was partially human and wholly mortal. But what sealed the decision in sacred steel was when 3 of her surviving cladekin came to her in the minutes before the 9th speech. They bore gifts. Benevola 91955 had given her a pebble from the slopes of Olympus Mons, the highest mountain on Mother Mars. Jurisprudence Garnet 12 had given her a translator data slug to replace the one she'd lost herself months before. Kane Gamma A67 had given her a fistful of loose ammunition in lieu of any personal effects. He had nothing else to give.
Those are some of the most important things to give, especially on this battlefield.
Magna Delta 8v8 felt the weight of these gifts, these precious and talismanic gestures, in the folds of her cloak as she listened to the 9th Primarch speak. And when the 9th asked the last question, she was ready with her answer. She couldn't vocalize it, at least not in Gothic, but her defiant shriek of Skit code was much of a muchness. Lorelei Kelvier wasn't supposed to be here. If she'd been able to summon the strength to laugh, she'd have surely cut loose with a raw bark of nasty, sarcastic amusement now. She'd been press-ganged, of course. Before the war's opening bombardments, they'd dragged her from a life sentence in the cold tunnel guts of the Sevastopol mining spire, and she'd honestly believed it would be easy to get out of ever getting sent to the line. Frankly, she'd not been able to believe her luck. Serving 20 years in the resource-starved mines for crimes she hadn't committed, that her own family had forced her to take the fall for. And suddenly she was dragged back into the sunlight, handed a knife and a rifle, and posted far from the prying eyes of her prison overseers.
I mean, imagine the war has become so desperate that they have to take prisoners and people who have been convicted, from the mines or from jails. They have to give them guns, they have to give them knives, and they have to be positioned in different locations on Terra to defend against the Chaos incursions. That's how desperate these people were. To the point where there weren't enough Imperial Guards men and women to defend Terra alone. There weren't enough Astartes and Mechanicus of Mars personnel to defend Terra. They have to bring in prisoners. They have to bring in miners. And who's to say that they would conform and listen to the commands of people who imprisoned them? People who made them suffer. Now all of a sudden we are all comrades in arms fighting against a common enemy. When a week ago you were whipping me, you were telling me to keep on digging, or you kept me in a prison cell, you tortured me, and now we are buddies. We have to fight against chaos. We have to fight against Horus Lupercal and his forces. Really, it is so awkward and strange. Yeah.
Fortune smiled at last, and it had a lot to make up for. But that had been, a year ago now? It wasn't that she'd never been able to escape, quite the opposite. She'd escaped easily, and more than once. The first time, she made a break for it with several others, and one of her companions had killed a sentry on their way out of the temporary barracks. They left the poor sentry in a strangled heap in a service locker, and fled, only to find themselves lost in the palatial chaos of the trans-European mag-rail nexus. Disappearing into the crowds had been easy. Choosing the right train to stow away on had been an exercise in frustration. Every route, every single one, was transferring troops to one future war front or another. And so her first escape attempt saw her leaving not only her regiment, but the entire sector, only to end up 1,000 kilometers away, disembarking in a crowd of troops, immediately subsumed into this new regiment. The Legiones Astartes officers at the end of the line refused all her entreaties. As far as they were concerned, she was there, she was with the regiment, and with them she'd stay. Her next escape attempt had been painfully tantalizing. After several weeks within her second regiment, she'd managed to fall in with a group of believers in the new faith. Frankly, she didn't think cult was too strong a word for them. And listen to them prattling about the God Emperor was both nauseating and uncomfortably inspiring. She knew everything they were saying was desperate nonsense. But if it had been true, well, they believed in a beautiful idea.
Yeah, it's an idea that gives you comfort in these troubled times.
Sure enough, never had she so wished for a religion to be real. This new association had allowed her a chance to slip along to their underground prayer gatherings, which in turn had let her make contact with an administratum liaison attending the sermons, who had been easy enough to convince into having her reassigned. All it took was professing visions of faith in the God Emperor, and he believed her touched by divinity.
Ave Imperator.
Lorelei was reasonably certain he'd fall for it anyway. If it had succeeded, it would have elevated her to some position of pathetically minor authority, overseeing the monotasks of servitors in a warehouse somewhere. If only her deployment orders hadn't come through ahead of her transfer. She'd been waiting, down to the last moments of the Magrail platform, casting about in the shrinking hope that a transferal notation would come through before she was finally forced, at threat of a baton beating, to board the train. Supposedly, the War Master's fleet would reach Terra soon. She was running out of time. Lorelei had escaped again 3 nights later. She had no regrets at all abandoning her 2nd regiment, and in the weeks after she tore loose, she managed to lie low in the crud shanties clustered at the base of Praxia Hivespire. There she lived in a ramshackle lean-to abandoned by its previous inhabitants. Likely they were press-ganged into service themselves. She'd scavenged up the basics of survival for several weeks that time, living like a homeless queen alongside a few other deserters. But food was scarce to begin with, and only got scarcer.
You will have no choice but to go back to the military. They have the food, they have the materials, the clothing, the weaponry, and everything else to protect you while you fight against the Chaos Forces. You have no choice. To survive, you must fight.
Soon enough, they'd turn on each other, and it was time to bleed or leave. At first, Lorelei made sure she wasn't the one bleeding by cutting deals with the right brutes. But she'd hoarded too much and was too good at scavenging. Soon, she became a victim of her own success. The scum ganged up against her and came for her with chains and scrap daggers. So farewell, Praxia. Farewell, crud shanty house. After that, well, desperation had set in. She did the one and only thing in her life she was ashamed of. Someone had died, so she might live. What followed was a period of pretending to be a Munitorum scribe. Though was it really pretense when she'd been damn good at the craft? She'd actually done the work, which in her eyes made her a legitimate contender for the trade. It had been a protracted, achingly dull stuff, but easy for all that. Following regiments around, taking stock of supplies, and so on, unto tedious infinity. Her ident documents were even legitimate, though that was largely because they weren't hers. They belonged to the woman she'd killed in order to take her place in the endless grind of imperial bureaucracy. A slice of dumb misfortune saw her busted by an otherwise useless administrator captain, and for no reason beyond a simple mistake in calculations. She was supposed to be the savant grade, was she not? Why, yes, it said so on her documentation. How could she make a mistake like this? Why were her resource projections skewing so wide of the actualities? She'd considered bribing him, which was a laugh because she had nothing to bribe him with.
And at a time like this, bribing is just pointless.
She'd even considered killing him, which was twice the joke. since this was no scrawny nutrition-stunted tallier of accounts. This was a retired army soldier twice her weight, and backed up by the crude strength of a bionic arm. Besides, she was in the thick of it then, deep in the coggy bowels of the Munitorum's processes, and even sneezing would leave a paper trail. She ran, literally fleeing into the night, hiding in a nameless slum in the shadows of yet another beautiful spire. If they caught her, they'd execute her. It took no time at all for her to be press-ganged in another wave of mandatory recruitment, and her protests availed her nothing. Practically everyone on the planet not serving in an essential position was recruited into the Imperial Army.
Yep.
And so Lorelei was discharged and assigned to her 3rd Regiment, temporarily barracked and gearing up to be sent to yet another sector, where they'd inevitably reinforce the other conscripts already stationed there. Her crime and previous desertions went uncovered, so there was that, at least. She was seemingly destined to fight in the war, though, against all efforts to the contrary. That was it. She was being sent to fight in the line. And for a time she had, for months. Months of starvation and privation, months of blinking smoke from her eyes and standing in trenches, next to men and women that shat themselves at night to keep warm, and pretending she was better than them, that they belonged there and she didn't, while she grew more gaunt, more sour, day by blood-soaked day, months of night fighting and seeing her platoon mates eviscerated and crucified and burst open with bolter fire and carved apart with chain swords. Months and months of what everyone else was also going through, being pawns in the Astartes' war. And now, after everything, now this, the great angel himself saying she could run. "Law," said the soldier next to her. "You all right?" A squad, all 7 of them still alive, were huddled together in a scrimmage that reeked of sweat and crap and charred earth, watching the flickering hololith projected from Sergeant Gathis' vambrace. Lorelei felt tears on her face. Was she all right? Oh, yeah. She was great. Just wonderful.
Let it out. Let the truth out. Be free.
She wasn't the only one showing emotion either. It wasn't weeping, exactly. It was a slow leak of emotion too weary to really be called weeping. "My name's not Lorelei," she said, cuffing the tears from her cheeks. She had no idea why she was crying. It was like she'd been punctured, and now it was just trickling out of her. "It's actually Danica." Her squad were looking at her now. "Lorelei Kelvier was just some Unitorum menial. I killed her months ago. Took her name. I hate that I did it. I wish I hadn't." She looked up, meeting their eyes. To a soul, they regarded her with depleted acceptance. No anger. No disgust. No judgment at all. Not after all they'd been through as a unit. "I was trying to get out of the war," she told them. "I didn't want to fight in the line." This was before I met all of you. You're not even my first regiment. This is just the only one I couldn't escape from. Throne, I'm so tired. We can finally run. Finally leave all this shit behind us. And I'm so bloody tired. Her exhausted tears gave way to laughter. Weak laughter and weary, but true. We're not running, Law, Sergeant Gathis said gently. On his vambrace, Lord Sanguinius had finished speaking. Prime Hark asked his last question, and already the shouts of "No! No!"
Never! We will never run,
rang out across the Delphic battlement. It was getting hard to speak over it. I know, she called back over the yelling. Neither am I. Danica and her squad mates added their voices to the chorus. It would be a poor joke indeed to say that no one wanted to leave the wall in the wake of the Primarch's words. Many wished to run. More than a few came close. But there were as many reasons to stay as there were defenders upon the wall. Every soul there fused some combination of anger, guilt, and shame, cobbling them together to make a piecemeal courage, the way people always do in their bleakest moments. Some stayed out of duty, others out of hope, deluded or otherwise, that reinforcements may yet reach them. Some stayed only because the resolve of those around them shamed them into staying. Some stayed because Sanguinius was right. They'd all given everything, and they had nothing worthwhile left to lose. Their lives were formalities by that point, a matter of biological habit, while the war had worn them down to hollow shells devoid of everything that had defined their lives. Some stayed because they were sick of running. And after 200 days of defensive withdrawals, this was it. This was the last battle, and they would hold the wall out of tired spite. Land would wonder, years later, if anyone truly did try to run. Surely some did.
I'm sure some people did. But they probably went back. Because if they tried to run, they would find themselves surrounded by the enemy. Or they would hear the battle in the distance and they'll just decide, you know what, I gotta go back. I have to go back and fight. And there'll be those who will block out reality as much as possible and really do run away. And maybe they were the lucky ones. Maybe they were the lucky ones who didn't get to experience the final battle. And also, of course, after the defeat of Horus Lupercal and the war coming to an end, they were definitely lucky. But for everybody else who fought here, they were necessary. It was necessary. Without them, who knows what would have happened to the Imperium of Man in those 2 to 3 days. Yeah.
Were they restrained by companions or shot in the back by their officers? Were they allowed to quit the wall unopposed, as the Ninth had promised?
I want to say yes, but like I said, I don't know if commissars existed in that time. If they did, I don't think they would allow them. I honestly just don't think they would allow them. I would not allow them. Even if the Primarch said, you are free to go. I'm like, okay, you can listen to him or you can listen to this gun here in my hand. Which is it? Which one do you choose? The gun or what the Primarch is saying? Because I want to make sure that everybody's here to fight in this last battle. We need you. We need your bodies. We need the weapons that you carry. We need that grit and determination. If you're going to cower out right now, you're not good to me alive. You're not good to me alive. We can use your body as a what is it, sandbag. Yeah, we can use your body as a sandbag. You'll be useful to us in one way or another.
It seemed likely, statistically certain, in fact, that this was the case. But each time he turned his goggles back towards the Royal Ascension, leading up to the Eternity Gate. The gate stood open, disgorging a stream of soldiers and material. No one seemed to be going against the flow to venture inside, nor did he see anyone making their way down the wall to take their chances in the wasteland. Perhaps, if land and the men and women like him, precious few they are in any era, had a firmer understanding of the human condition, it wouldn't have been such a surprise that so many stayed when there was a choice to flee. "No!" cried the defenders on the walls. They rejected the Primarch's offer with a gestalt sound of vocal thunder. "No! No! 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 Land didn't shout with the others. He wasn't one for the theatrics of yelled defiance. Still, there was something rather primal in the way the tumult washed over him. At one point, he caught himself drawing in a shaky breath, almost joining his voice to the others. He resisted, naturally. What an embarrassing loss of decorum it would be to join in. Greetings, one and all. If you enjoyed that, you can support me on my Discord, Patreon, Redbubble, or with a channel membership. Or simply like, comment, and subscribe to catch any and all future DQVO videos. And as always, my thanks for watching.
All right, guys. Yeah, that was an amazing video. That was Echoes of Eternity, Sanguinius speech at the Eternity Gate, voiceover made on the DQVO YouTube channel. DQVO reminds me of Voldemort's Guide to Warhammer 40k. Yes. Oh, yes. Voldemort's Guide to Warhammer. Yes. DQVO reminds me of that YouTuber because they have the same sort of tone in voice, and also in the voice acting. It's quite similar as well, to some degree, but definitely when I hear DQVO, it just reminds me of Voldemort's Guide. Yeah, it's quite nice, really. Yeah, Sanguinius made such a moving speech, and he told it like it is. We are not going to make it. We're not going to succeed in this final battle. But what we can do is to buy time. Buy time for the 13th Legion. Buy time for the 1st Legion and the 6th Legion to get to Terra as fast as possible, as soon as possible. They might find you there still fighting, or they might not. And if they don't find you there fighting, they will be the ones who will demand retribution for your deaths. They'll be the ones fighting for revenge against the Chaos Forces or against Holo Supercal and his forces. and the traitor legions, I should say. So yeah, Sanguinius, he told them as much as possible in his own honesty and transparency. He even told them that yes, I can see into the future. Yes, my death is certain and it is coming around this time. Not sure when exactly, not sure how is it going to happen, but it will happen around this time. But I'm not fighting because I can see into the future. I'm fighting because I believe that this is right and that I can do whatever needs to be possible or needs to be done to defend the Eternity Gate, to defend the Imperium of Man from the forces of Horus Supercal and the traitor legions. And he said it himself that there's a part of him that wants to run away. And he can run away if he wants to. He can fly. But run away to where? Where would he go? There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run to. He has to stay and fight. Yes, he says his human side is compelling him to fight. But also, I think logically, in his mind, he knows it, that there's nowhere for him to go. There's nowhere for him to run to. He can go to the ends of the galaxy. Horus Supercal will find him. One way or another, he will find him. So rather fight and die here, defending an ideal, defending the Imperium of Man, defending his father. He gave this choice to the soldiers as well. If you want to stay here and fight with us, fight with us. If you want to run away, it's okay. I understand. Take this chance. Go and be with your family in these last moments, or take your chances in the wastelands. But know this, that there is nowhere to go to. There's nowhere to hide. There's nowhere that's going to be safe haven. You will live a very short life out there. Not because of the environment, but because of the defeat of the Imperium of Man and the death of the Emperor. Once he's dead, it's over for everybody on Terra. So there's nowhere to run to. Rather stay and fight. Fight with those you've been fighting with for over 200 days. Fight with those who you've joined up with from across the galaxy. Fight against this tyranny, this evil that is about to consume you all. Don't die a very slow and agonizing death out in the wastelands or in abandoned cities. Rather stay here and fight. And that's something that, majority of everybody there, those 100,000 men and women, have come to the conclusion that there is nowhere to run to. This is it. And if there were people who still stubborn enough to think that yes, this is my chance to get out of here, I'm sure their commanding officers, took an aim with their pistol or with their rifles and shot them in the head. I'm certain of that. I'm certain some commanding officers took a shot at those people who tried to run away. Definitely. So the minority of the minority of the minority of people who tried to escape, they probably got shot, or they did succeed in running away, but then they realized that they made a mistake and they went back, or they were, surveying their routes for escape and realized that there is no way to escape because the Chaos Forces are everywhere. The traitor legions are everywhere. The only safe place is the place where you have to fight. The only place that will still feed you food, give you shelter, give you weaponry to defend yourself is with the people defending the Eternity Gate. There's nowhere else to go. There's nowhere else to run to. I know Sanguinius did not say it in the way I'm saying it, but I'm giving it to you in a logical sense. I'm not giving it to you in a way of hope or the truth. I'm giving it to you in a logical sense. There is nowhere to run to. You just gotta stay there and fight. You just gotta stay there and fight. And yeah, no, Sanguinius, he truly is the Emperor's son. He's able to galvanize human forces in a way I don't think I've heard any other Primarch doing something similar. Most of the Primarchs don't really see humanity as they'd rather see us as cattle or sheep to be herded. They don't really see us. They don't really respect us. They would see their Astartes, they would see the Emperor and their fellow Primarch brothers, but they don't really see humanity. And I think Sanguinius is one of those very few Primarchs who actually see us and who's actually able to talk to us. He's able to tap into the human psyche in a way that even the Emperor cannot replicate. Not even the Emperor can replicate what Sanguinius is able to do. So yeah, he's amazing. He truly is amazing. He doesn't have the aura that the Emperor has when he walks into a room and everybody's just feeling overwhelmed and they just want to kneel before the Emperor. He doesn't have that aura. Or like Horus Lupercal, he also has the same sort of aura ability that the Emperor has. Sanguinius doesn't have that. He has his own truth and his own sincerity, and that is enough. That is enough to tap into the human psyche, and it works. Yeah. It was a nice speech. Very truthful and desperate speech right there. And the other people that were within this 100,000 army, when you think about Danica and what she's been going through, how she was in a mine and then she was enlisted into the army and she's been escaping and trying to survive out in the abandoned spires. And then she had to go back because, she was conscripted again into the military. This back and forth situation where she's been trying for so many attempts to, escape and not be part of the military, not be part of the Imperium of Man in any sort of way. But it somehow, she's just been pulling back into the military. She's always been dragged back into it. One reason after another. And now when this chance has been given to her by the Primarch saying, you are free to go. She's like, you know what? I've tried. I've tried it so many times. I'm just going to let the truth come out. I've been holding this lie in me for so long. And I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this alive, but I'm going to just tell the truth. Guys, I am not L'Oreal, yeah. I am Danica. I killed the lady that had that name. I tried to escape multiple times. And I'm tired. I'm tired. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here and fight. It was a nice story right there. That one was a very nice story. Also, the story of Magma Delta. And her getting gifts during her combat anniversary. Yeah, really, that storyline is also quite interesting. How they give each other gifts, small little trinkets, and yeah, Magma Delta realized that under logical terms, there's nowhere to go to, there's nowhere I can escape to. I'm under orders. I am programmed to be loyal and to obey, and this is where I'll stay. And yeah, really, all the Imperial Guard regiments that belong to different specialized units, yes, you might think that your specialization is not suited for this current battlefield, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you have a bayonet, or you have a lasgun, or you have a rocket launcher, or you have a machine gun of any sort of type, It doesn't matter. Everybody must be here for this battle. Everybody must be here, no matter the cost. Yeah. I'm just imagining, what would it be like to watch that in a cinema? I think that would be amazing. If there is going to be a Warhammer 40k movie, I don't know when, I think really we should focus on this, storyline in terms of the Horus Heresy. Focusing on the battle on Terra. Sanguinius giving out the speech. Seeing the faces of all the Imperial Guard, men and women, looking at the Primarch. The Blood Angels looking at their Primarch. The different forms of Titans also looking at the Primarch. It would be something amazing, I think. Really, it would be something epic. That last speech before death. Yeah, I think it would be very good. Alright guys, that is it. Remember, I'm going to be continuing on with my reaction to the playlist requested by Anthrax Crab 2222. Let's see what's the next video. Next video is Echoes of Eternity, Kabanda. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Kabanda's Second Chance, Bane of the Ninth Bloodline, on the 11th Primarch YouTube channel. Yes, that will be next. Remember, if you want to check out my previous reaction to the other videos on the end and the death of Sanguinius playlist, I'm going to be putting the links in the description below, as well as you'll be able to see my past reaction to Gilliman's message to Sanguinius from the Echoes of Eternity, a 40k dramatic reading. That card will be somewhere here. Yeah, be somewhere on this side. So you'll find that card there. If you want to check out the other videos that I'm reacting to, remember that they'll be in the description below. The links will be in the description below. Alright, let's continue.